So the U.S. just handed Syria a massive political lifeline, pulled its forces from 3 bases,
Right.
and at the exact same time shredded over $100 million in vital aid contracts. So you have to ask.
Is this a strategy?
Exactly. Is this a calculated strategic withdrawal, or is this just pure bureaucratic self-sabotage?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are dissecting a fascinating and, frankly, an alarming set of documents.
We are.
This is the Lead Inspector General Report on Operation Inherent Resolve OIR, and it's for the second quarter of 2025.
And this report, it details these immense, almost contradictory changes happening across Iraq and Syria.
It's an unprecedented quarter, really.
Hi.
You have this significant military consolidation on one hand, a truly massive diplomatic reversal, recognizing the new Syrian government.
Huge. And then maybe the most urgent concern, especially for anyone who cares about stability or, taxpayer money, the wholesale collapse of U.S. civilian support programs, all because of these rapid government cuts and transfers.
And that's the core tension we really need to get into.
Right.
Our mission today is to understand how the U.S. military is drawing down its footprint, claiming success against ISIS.
While at the same time, the chaos in our own federal agencies might be the single biggest self-inflicted threat to stability in the whole region right now.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the military piece, because that part is framed as a success story. America is stepping back, but claiming mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So what does that reduction actually look like on the ground?
Well, the Department of Defense confirmed this consolidation is what they call a deliberate and conditions-based process.
Conditions-based.
Exactly. They feel it's strategically prudent because of what they're calling major gains in the fight against ISIS. So the frame is, this isn't a rushed exit.
It's measured.
It's supposed to be a measured withdrawal.
And the numbers seem to reflect that, a real commitment to ending these open-ended deployments. In Syria, U.S. forces, they left 3 bases in the middle Euphrates River Valley.
The Mervy area, yep.
Right. They either dismantled them or handed them over. And the ultimate goal is huge, a reduction to fewer than 1,000 troops in Syria.
Which is a massive drawdown.
And at the same time, in Iraq, they're continuing to reposture troops, getting ready to completely vacate the big Ain al-Assad air base.
So you see the physical commitment is shrinking in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
But that drawdown didn't happen in a vacuum.
No.
It was really enabled by this historic and maybe controversial diplomatic pivot.
And this is where it gets really interesting. For those of us who've been tracking this region for years, this was a diplomatic earthquake.
Monumental.
Tell us about the recognition of the new Syrian government.
So on May 13th, President Trump formally recognized the government of Ahmed al-Shara as the legitimate government of Syria.
And for the first time since the embassy closed back in 2012.
Yep.
The U.S. raised the American flag over the ambassador's residence in Damascus.
It's a fundamental foreign policy shift.
And the follow-up was just as dramatic, right? We didn't just recognize them, we took off the economic handcuffs.
Exactly. On June 30th, the president issues an executive order, and it terminates the broad Syria sanctions program.
And the reasoning.
Special Envoy Barrack put it very clearly. He said this was done to preserve the integrity of the U.S. primary objective, which is keeping ISIS down for good, and to give the Syrian people a real chance to rebuild.
The strategic genius here, or maybe the immense risk, it really depends on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
For years, those broad sanctions were meant to pressure the old regime, but they just ended up crippling the economy, hurting civilians, which, ironically, can actually fuel extremism.
Well, if you connect this to the bigger picture, it looks like the U.S. is prioritizing counter-terrorism over these expensive and, let's face it, ineffective regime change policies.
A more surgical approach.
Exactly.
Yep.
By lifting the sanctions, we're basically saying our resources are now only going to focus on ISIS remnants and very specific bad actors, human rights abusers, Iran proxies, instead of these broad restraints that were just holding back stability. It's about a laser-focused national interest.
Okay, so that strategic decision makes sense, but it lands us in a really complicated neighborhood where the threats have not gone away.
No.
The U.S. military is reporting significant successes, but what's the real status of ISIS right now?
Well, the good news, according to the report, is that ISIS-claimed attacks are at historically low levels.
Okay.
The bad news is that their remnants, and I'm quoting here, remain motivated to regain strength and support.
They're not giving up.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They are actively trying to destabilize the new Syrian government. And that's a crucial point, because if that government fails, you get a massive vacuum. They even claimed their first attack against the new government in May, an IED against an army truck. They're testing things.
That's the constant pressure. And the other massive immediate risk that the U.S. is still, financially and morally on the hook for.
The camps.
The detention and displacement camps. It's a security and a humanitarian crisis brewing at the same time.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about approximately 28,400 residents at Al-Hol, another 2,400 at Raj.
And most of them are women and children.
The vast majority. And they are highly vulnerable. ISIS is constantly trying to indoctrinate people in there, infiltrate the facilities, and basically turn them into incubators for the next generation of terrorists.
There is one piece of good news here, though. During this quarter, there was a statistic showing that regional partners are stepping up.
Right, the repatriation.
Exactly. 2,622 Iraqis were repatriated from the camps. That shows Iraq is committed to solving this problem by actually taking their own citizens back.
And that effort is so vital for any kind of long-term success against ISIS. But, even as the U.S. pulls back, other major powers are jumping in to vie for influence.
So the picture gets more complicated.
Oh, yeah. If you look at the other players, they are not slowing down one bit.
So tell us, what are they doing? We're consolidating, but the competition is heating up.
Well, Turkey, for example, is still just singularly focused on what they see as the SDF-PKK threat, the Kurdish forces we partnered with. Turkey's talking about setting up training bases inside Syria to expand their reach. At the same time, Israel kept up its airstrikes against military targets, trying to degrade any leftover advanced weapons from the old regime.
And you can't forget Russia.
Never. Russia is still very much committed to its two main bases, Hymym Air Base and the naval facility at Tartus.
So the picture is clear. The U.S. is moving to a smaller, maybe smarty footprint, but it's in a neighborhood where our rivals and even our partners are all aggressively pushing their own interests.
Precisely. So we've established the military drawdown, which seems successful, and the diplomatic calculation, which seems necessary.
Right.
Now we get to the core problem in the report, the bureaucratic failure that just directly undermines all of those wins.
This is where we shift from strategic success to just administrative disaster. The report outlines an almost unbelievable level of government mismanagement.
It's stunning.
Effective July 1st, the State Department takes over most foreign assistance, and this results in the termination of almost all USAID programs.
Yeah, the transition itself was just put on this massively accelerated timeline. The state took over what USA was doing.
And for listeners, USAI is the U.S. Agency for International Development. They handle these massive humanitarian and stabilization programs.
Their Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, the BHA, was managing life-saving grants.
And the execution of this handoff was, it's an absolute disgrace to taxpayer accountability.
It really is.
Let's get into the specifics. The chaos. USAID awards were terminated with, and this is a quote, little or no notice.
Which is crucial because these awards fund things like water, electricity repair. They're often delivered by local groups on the ground.
And what's just fascinating here is the sheer administrative breakdown. The report says several awards were, get at this, erroneously terminated, later reinstated, and then re-terminated.
You can't make this up.
Wait, so they sent notices saying you're cut off, and then just kidding, you're back on, and then nope, cut off again.
Often within days.
Yeah.
It has life and death consequences for the people who rely on that aid.
And termination notices were even sent to the wrong people. It just caused immediate confusion and delays across the entire region.
The cost of this,
Yeah.
this blunder, is just immense, financially and strategically. We saw the immediate cancellation of huge stabilization programs.
Like what?
This included $41 million for essential services and good governance programs, and over $18 million for the vital support that the White Helmets provide.
You cut off essential services and emergency responders with zero notice. You are guaranteeing instability. And when we talk about waste, the report noted that this chaotic closure created immense pressure on the staff that was left to just spend down funds as quickly as possible before the deadline.
Which is a recipe for disaster.
It significantly raised the risk of financial mismanagement and fraud.
And then the capacity for accountability just vanished. The transition happened on an accelerated timeline with very limited staff.
So a human capital failure.
A huge one. All USA BHA staff in both Iraq and Syria were terminated by July 1st. The U.S. government lost its eyes and its ears on the ground, the people who actually knew which programs were working.
That is bad enough. But here is the most critical failure, especially for the American taxpayer. USAID then canceled all third-party monitoring contracts.
That is the single most important detail in this entire report.
Why is that so critical?
Because without that independent third-party monitoring, U.S. aid itself admits it cannot verify the programs are being implemented correctly.
So they're flying blind.
Completely blind. This skyrockets the risk of waste, fraud, and abuse, especially in a conflict zone where money could be so easily diverted to bad actors. We lost the ability to track your money at the precise moment we needed the most oversight.
So what does this all mean? The U.S. military achieves this major success in its drawdown, but the civilian agencies, the ones responsible for preventing radicalization, for providing basic services that cost way less than fighting another war.
They plunged into self-inflicted chaos.
Right. In Iraq alone, 3 active USA awards, over $13 million, were terminated. Others faced huge payment delays.
And relief actors on the ground are projecting that this sudden, chaotic loss of services just increases the vulnerability of women and children to abuse, exploitation, and radicalization.
So it directly undermines our long-term goals.
It directly undermines the entire counter-ISIS effort.
And we are actively cutting aid and oversight right in the middle of a profound humanitarian need. The World Food Program says 14.6 million people in Syria will need food assistance in 2025.
An unbelievable number.
And we just fired the staff and cut the monitoring designed to help manage that crisis.
It raises a really important question. Do the strategic gains our military and diplomats made, do they even matter if bureaucratic incompetence immediately creates new security vulnerabilities?
It's a fair question.
When you cut oversight that fast, you just open the door wide for financial failure. And that instability is a lifeline for the remnants of ISIS we're trying to defeat.
So we've seen this strategic foreign policy play, recognizing a new government, drawing down troops, and yet we've also witnessed our own federal bureaucracy fumble the ball so badly on humanitarian aid that it actually increases the risks.
The report explicitly emphasizes that long-term security hinges on successful repatriation and reintegration efforts.
Getting people out of those camps.
Exactly. Getting them back into stable communities. But if the U.S. cuts assistance and loses its ability to monitor the funds it does send, how can we assure the public that those dollars aren't just creating more instability, or worse, financing the very bad actors we're trying to defeat through unchecked waste and fraud?
For the listener, you have to consider this. That $100 million in aid isn't just a rounding error. That was stabilization funding. It was meant to secure the military gains we made.
Yeah.
When the government admits it can't verify how your money is being spent in a high-risk conflict zone, that's not just poor accounting. It's a direct security failure.
And that's the takeaway. The integrity of this mission isn't just about successful strikes or sanctions relief. It's about holding our own government accountable for every single dollar spent on the ground.
You need both.
You need effective foreign policy paired with efficient, monitored spending. Or you risk having to send troops back later to solve the problem the bureaucrats created today.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope this knowledge empowers you to demand better accountability from our strategic and our bureaucratic operations overseas.